The Sith are undeniably among the most fascinating aspects of the Star Wars universe, with their lore and history spanning over thousands of years and captivating fans with tales of power, betrayal, and ambition. Throughout this extensive history, many powerful and influential lords of the Sith have risen to prominence, altering the galaxy in profound and often terrifying ways. But among the many Sith who've existed, who was the first of them? Born around 7003 BBY, Ajunta Pall served as a Jedi Knight following the end of the Great Skirmish, which, for those of you who don't know what that was, in short, was a war between the early Jedi Order and those who disagreed with how the Jedi ran things and sought a different way to use the Force. And while we don't know for sure who started the war, we do know that the Jedi Order would eventually put an end to it. Back to Ajunta. Following his appointment to knighthood, he would begin to express more of his power and would achieve many feats, which quickly would give him the rank of Master. And sometime following this, Ajunta would start to dabble in the arts of alchemy. And throughout his studies, he would discover many secrets of creating and shaping life. However, soon after that, the Jedi Council would learn of his studies and they would be shocked and would deem it an abomination of the Force. They would also forbade Ajunta from ever doing it again or from teaching it to his many followers, as they deemed that use of the Force and himself a pawn of the dark side. And it would be this mixed with this use of dark side alchemy would push Ajunta over the edge as he and his many followers would leave the Order and would declare war against the Jedi, beginning a century-long conflict that would later be known as a 100-year darkness. In these battles, Ajunta would use his extensive knowledge and power in alchemy and creating life to create these monstrosities known as the Leviathan, which would splinter the Jedi forces, would also create the Shamblers, the Howlers, and the Pit of Horrors. But even with all of this, the now appointed High General Pall and his followers would lose the war against the Jedi after the final battle of Korbos, where Ajunta would prove his skills on the dark side by killing over a dozen Jedi. And following this devastating defeat, Ajunta and his few surviving followers would be captured by their former Jedi brethren. And during this, he and his followers would be stripped of their ranks within the Jedi Order and their weapons would be taken. And as well as that, they would also be exiled from any space controlled by the Galactic Republic and would be sent into the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Traveling from one planet to another in search of a rumored kingdom of the Sith, they would tirelessly search for this as they craved the untapped wealth of knowledge about the dark side that this rumored kingdom possessed. And after many years of searching, they would find it. And after arriving on the desert planet of Korriban, Ajunta and his followers would venture out into the wastelands of the desert planet and would soon learn that the world was inhabited by the red-skinned Force-sensitive species known as the Sith. And while they did possess powerful natures of the dark side of the Force, they were rather primitive compared to the Dark Jedi. But despite that, Ajunta found himself quickly interested in the Sith's creative uses of the Force and the planet itself, as he once stated that the world can scream the loudest for those who can hear the dark side voices. Now, at first, Ajunta and his followers were not welcomed with open arms by the Sith. It would take them many weeks as they would learn about the hierarchy and how their culture would work. Realizing the threat the newcomers would bring to his people, the king of the planet, Hakram Guash, would resist them and would try to stop any efforts they had of them learning the secrets of the Force. But that would be fruitless, as Ajunta would be able to persuade the king's second-in-command to switch sides and help them kill the king, which would be successful, as Ajunta would end Hakrash's life with his own sword. Following this, the Sith species would begin to respect and worship the new Dark Jedi as godlike creatures due to their immense power and advanced technology, and they would gift Ajunta with the title of Generai, meaning Dark Lord, which meant that Ajunta Pall was the first ever Dark Lord of the Sith, and this position would be covered by a fellow exile known as Swords of Sin. However, Ajunta would be too cautious to claim the title of Sith Arai, the prophesized overlord of the Sith and their chosen one. And after becoming the first ever Dark Lord of the Sith, Ajunta and his newly acclaimed kingdom would form the first ever Sith Empire and would expand its influence onto other worlds, the most notable of being Ziost, which would later become the capital of the Sith Empire. It'd also be where Ajunta would spend the next several decades living on and ruling until he eventually would die. However, his empire would live on, but his body would be returned to the planet of Korriban, where the Sith ruler would be placed inside of a massive tomb in what would be later known as the Valley of the Dark Lords. And while his physical body may have been dead, his expansive knowledge in Sith alchemy allowed his spirit to persist on after death within his tomb. And although this may seem like he learned how to become a Force ghost, in reality, his spirit may have survived, but it was nowhere near as powerful as a Jedi's, as his spirit was permanently bounded there and he could not travel, and would be there within the tomb where he would stay for centuries as he studied each new Dark Lord that rose to power. And each time they rose to power and fell, something he noticed that they usually would fall at the hands of one another. And it would be from this realization that would cause him to question his actions as a Sith Lord. And a millennium after his physical death during the Great Jedi Civil War, a Sith apprentice who was actually a Jedi Knight undercover, known as Revan, would locate and enter Ajunta Pall's tomb in search of his sword, in which he would use to gain prestige within the Sith Academy, as he was hoping to learn the coordinates of the Star Forge. search. And while he was searching within the tomb, the spirit of Ajunta Pall would confront him, and he would confess in Revan his immense disappointment in himself for becoming a Sith Lord. And in this time, as a spirit, he would no longer blame the Jedi for the Sith's defeat during the 100-year darkness. He realized it would be the Siths themselves' fault for losing, would lead Ajunta to regret ever becoming a Dark Lord of the Sith and forming their empire. After hearing this, Revan would do either one of three things. If he chose a light side version of the game in Knights of the Old Republic, Revan would convince him to turn back to the light side of the Force, as he would finally become one with the Force finally and would repent from the dark side. But if you go down the dark side version, you instead would challenge the Sith spirit and would defeat him. Or there's also the other option where you failed to bring him back to light side and you instead just let his spirit fade away forever. While the physical and spiritual body of Ajunta may have passed, his influence and efforts across the galaxy have lived on for thousands of years, as the Jedi and Sith would continue to fight each other, until eventually the Sith would be defeated. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. I really hope we get to see more of Ajunta's story in the future, as it's just such an interesting take on the Sith. If you enjoyed today's video, it would mean a whole lot to me if you would like and subscribe, as it would help the channel out a ton. Also, if you found today's video interesting and you want to learn more about the Sith, make sure to click the video appearing on screen now. And with that, my fellow Star Wars nerds, may the Force be with you.